My first interest in geology that I remember was failing to understand why, when I travelled to my grandmother's house, maybe 50 miles away from where I grew up, why the rocks were totally different. I grew up in an area with red sandstone, and we travelled through an area with dark coloured rocks that were clearly very different in origin. And I couldn't imagine what the boundaries between one rock type and the other was like. And then subsequently to that, I got into rock climbing. And as I climbed up the rocks, I was looking at them in order to decide where to put my hands and feet. And I couldn't understand exactly what I was looking at. And all the time I would ask people who I thought would have an opinion about what this was. So, for example, the guy that ran the climbing club at school that I was in had done a degree in geophysics, so he really knew a little bit about the rocks. And he described to me the different rocks. I was amazed by the diversity that I saw. One of the things that I absolutely love about what I do is imagining the history of each of the individual grains that we're measuring. Because I usually am working on sediment grains, and those sediment grains are the eroded remnants of different rocks. They were often eroded many thousands or even millions of years ago, and the grains were transported on the Earth's surface by rivers or by glaciers or by being blown by the wind. And grains from different origins have been transported and mixed together. Each of these individual grains has had a different path through its history, since it was in a magma chamber and it crystallized and it moved through different rocks, or since it was crystallized as part of a metamorphic rock, or since it was formed as a vein within a sequence of rocks much closer to the surface, for example. And all of those have ended up in my sample. And I have specific problems that I have to deal with. For example, sometimes we have a rather low signal intensity, and in order to try to make predictions about how we're going to deal with that problem, what's responsible for that problem, we really have to imagine all of these different histories together. And I actually love that. It's like entering a little time machine and having to be forced to thinking about those individual routes that the grains have taken and the paths that it's like a little life. They each have something that's like a little personality to me, that's represented in their different characteristics. My route to find myself here as a faculty member in Earth and Space Sciences is a little bit like one of my sedimentary quartz grains. So I've really taken a wide variety of different routes, and I've been based in different locations, and I've studied different things. And I love that's the kind of diversity that it gives me as an individual. So I studied geology as an undergraduate student in the United Kingdom. I then did a degree that was effectively doing physics in an archaeology department. I then was based actually in a botany department working on young sediments in Cambridge University in the United Kingdom, but basically working on a technique which is usually worked on by chemistry faculty. I then worked in a geography department looking and teaching at very young sedimentary environments. I then moved to an earth sciences situation where I worked again on this technique. Finally, I had a stint working in an environmental science department. I used to teach introductory environmental science to students. So I really see myself as a very interdisciplinary earth scientist, and I guess now I should consider myself as an earth and planetary scientist. And I love the interaction with people with lots of different backgrounds. So I get to travel around the world a lot. I often do fieldwork in places like Greenland, the Himalayas. I do a lot of work in deserts, in the Australian desert, in the Mojave Desert, here in California. And I go to lots of places that have a lot of interesting places to visit, places like Greece and Italy that are filled with interesting cultural heritage.